Because of why I search the deep through endless nights, no time to sleep. The call inside I can't deny. I'll find the light because of why.
Hey everyone, and welcome. So, let's talk about Sweden. When you hear that name, you probably picture this modern-day paradise, right? A place with amazing social benefits, a killer work-life balance, and a society that just seems to have it all figured out. But how much of that is the real deal, and how much is just a really good reputation? Today, we're going to dive in and unpack what it's really like to live in the land of fika and IKEA. You know, this quote from an American who actually moved to Sweden, it just hits the nail on the head. It really gets to the core of that Swedish dream. It's not just about getting free stuff. It's about this fundamental sense of dignity you get from knowing that society has your back, from healthcare to your kids' education. It's a really powerful idea, and it's why so many of us look at Sweden and think, wow. But here's the million-dollar question. Is that picture just a little too perfect? Are there some big trade-offs and challenges hiding behind that shiny, perfect image? In this explainer, we're going to look at both sides of the coin, using the hard data and the real-life experiences of the people who actually live there. So, first things first, let's ground ourselves in the facts. Why does Sweden always seem to be at the top of every best places to live list? Well, the numbers tell a pretty convincing story.
Check this out. Sweden is consistently ranked near the very top of the world for quality of life. For example, it's number 5 on the Human Development Index. And that's not just about money. It measures a country's overall health, education, and standard of living. Pretty impressive stuff.
And this top-tier ranking isn't just a fluke in one area. Nope. Sweden gets high marks pretty much across the board. We're talking super low income inequality, which means the gap between the richest and poorest folks is way smaller than in a lot of other places. It has incredibly high gender equality, and it's one of the least corrupt nations on the entire planet. These aren't just stats on a page. They're the building blocks of a really stable and fair society. So, how in the world do they achieve all this? Well, the answer really lies in what is arguably Sweden's most famous feature, its massive social safety net. Let's break down what this system actually does for its people.
This right here is the heart and soul of the Swedish model. Think about it. Healthcare isn't something you worry about losing if you lose your job. It's a right. You want to go to university? It's free. You have a kid? You get this unbelievably generous parental leave, and childcare is seriously subsidized. Plus, workers are really well protected, and public transport is designed to be easy and affordable for everyone. The whole system is basically built to take away life's biggest stressors. 480. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how many paid days new parents get to share for each child. That's more than a year. It's such a powerful statement about what that society prioritizes: family, childhood, and making sure things are equal for both parents. Okay, I know. So far, this sounds pretty amazing, right? Free school, tons of family leave, universal healthcare, what's not to love? But as anyone who actually lives there will tell you, this system comes with some pretty big trade-offs. So let's flip the coin and get into the other side of the story.
This chart captures that trade-off idea perfectly. For every major pro, there's a pretty significant con. Those strong protections for workers, some people say they can lead to a work culture that's kind of complacent, maybe lacking a bit of hustle. That free healthcare for everyone, it's fantastic for emergencies, but for specialized care, people report waiting for months, sometimes even years. And that orderly, high-trust society, it can feel, well, socially cold, making it really, really hard for newcomers to make real friends.
And yeah, the list of daily frustrations doesn't stop there. The winters are famously long, dark, and can be really tough on your mental health. The housing market, especially in a city like Stockholm, is a nightmare, incredibly expensive and hard to get into. And of course, someone's got to pay for all those social benefits, and that someone is you, through some of the highest taxes in the world. On top of that, there's a strong cultural pressure to fit in, which can be tough if you're someone who likes to stand out.
This quote just cuts right to the chase on the healthcare frustration. For your standard, everyday problems, the system is great. But if you have something more complex, something non-urgent, but still really serious, that wait to see a specialist can be agonizing. In fact, a report from early 2024 found that nearly 40% of patients waited over 3 extra months for treatment, even after they'd already had their first specialist appointment.
But here's the twist. Despite these very real, very frustrating challenges, Sweden is still a global powerhouse of innovation. So how is that possible? To understand that, we have to look at one of its absolute cornerstones, its massive investment in education and research. This isn't just about making college free. It's about building a national engine for progress. Sweden's world-class education system didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It was built piece by piece through smart, deliberate reforms. Back in the 70s, they opened the doors to way more people. In the 90s, they gave universities more freedom to run themselves and set up new foundations for research. Then in the 2000s, they brought in performance-based funding to spark competition. It's a story of constant tweaking and improving to aim for excellence.
And check this out, because it's a key detail. You might think the government pays for all the research, right? Well, not quite. While the government provides a really solid base of funding, the majority of research money, 54%, actually comes from outside sources, like private companies and foundations. This creates this super dynamic environment where research has to be good, it has to be relevant, and it has to be innovative if it wants to get funded. You can really see Sweden's commitment to this when you put them side by side with other countries. They pour a massive 3.4% of their entire economic output back into research and development. That's a lot more than other tech hubs like Germany, and it's way, way above the EU average. This huge investment is what fuels their knowledge-based economy, giving us global companies from Spotify to Volvo. Okay, so after looking at the incredible numbers, the social systems, the cultural quirks, and all the challenges, let's circle back to our big question. What is the final verdict on Sweden?
The most important thing to understand is that it's all one giant trade-off. You get a society that is literally built on dignity and equality, but you have to learn to navigate some pretty tough social and cultural hurdles. You get an amazing work-life balance, but it's paid for by your high taxes, and you still have to deal with a crazy housing market. You get to live with this breathtaking nature and clean air, but you have to be ready to endure those long, dark, and very cold winters.
So, at the end of the day, Sweden isn't perfect. Of course not. No country is. What makes it so fascinating, though, is that it represents a clear, conscious choice to prioritize a different set of values. It's a society that has decided that collective well-being, equality, and stability matter most, even if that means giving up some individual freedoms or dealing with some big inefficiencies. It's not necessarily better or worse, it's just different.
And that really leads us to the final question, which is a really personal one. Looking at your own values, your own priorities in life, is that Swedish trade-off worth it for you?
What do you think? I would genuinely love to hear your perspective down in the comments. If you found this explainer interesting, please do me a favor and give it a like, share it with someone who might be curious, and definitely subscribe for more deep dives just like this one. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.